Ochify, the Game Business Podcast.
This is Ochify, Yuichi Ochi. I'm a veteran with about 20 years in the game industry, mostly on the business side. Just a middle-aged guy sharing my thoughts on industry news and stories I've seen and heard. I believe that in this era, it is more important to view the world from your own unique perspective than just to know information. This program aims to provide better insights to everyone involved in business. Talking only about serious stuff gets tiring, and my friends call me the king of East Asian B-grade gourmet. Basically, I'm a foodie, so I want to talk about that gourmet info too. Today, I want to look at Game Discover Co.'s analysis of the 2025 rankings. The top 20 best-selling software lists by platform have been released, so we'll be looking at those. Also, since it's the beginning of the year and plus I've been saying for a while that I sense a turning of the tides or a shift, I want to ask, what exactly is that? And predict the changes likely to occur in the game industry over the next 5 to 10 years. And for the gourmet segment, I'll talk about the absolute best Hire-katsu pork fillet cutlet in Japan right now, which I discovered in Shibuya last year.
Game business topic.
At the end of 2025, I received an email from Game Discover Co. summarizing various data for each game platform for 2025, so I'm going to look through that. First, let's start with how many game titles were released last year. Regarding Steam, there were 19,008 titles. That's an increase of a little under 500 from the previous year. It didn't quite hit 20,000 yet, but considering it was 2,638 titles 10 years ago, that is a massive increase. The Switch had 3,138 titles. In 2018, the Switch's second year, there were 1,150 titles, so that's a little under 3 times as many. 3,138 titles means that, assuming a 50-week year, an average of 60 titles are released every week. I think this has become a pretty competitive environment as well. Xbox had 896 titles, which is a drop of about 220 titles from last year's 1,115. PlayStation had 1,347 titles. That's an increase over last year. However, it seems the peak was in 2022 with 1,635 titles. And compared to 10 years ago, there were 200 titles in 2015. So this is also a more than 6-fold increase. The number of titles is increasing at a rate comparable to Steam. The market, though, hasn't reached that size, whether it's PlayStation or Steam. Revenue is probably growing, but I think the growth in the number of titles is far outpacing it. So, regarding the games that sold on Steam last year, there are 2 types of data here: revenue and units sold. In terms of units sold, number 1 is Repo, maybe a lethal company-style co-op game. Yeah, that's 6-player co-op 1. Then Peak Battlefield 6, Schedule 1, Monster Hunter Wilds, ARK Raiders, Hollow Knight, Silk Song, Escape from Duckov, Are We There Yet? And Claire Obscure, Expedition 33. I see. It feels like a lot of the indies are titles that came out in the latter half of this year. In terms of revenue, Battlefield 6 is number 1, Monster Hunter Wilds is number 2, Arc Raiders is number 3, and Claire Obscure is 4th. Inzoi is in there at number 20. Amazing. Again, it feels like indies released in the second half stand out, though that's not necessarily always the case. Amidst the big earning titles from major publishers, the indies really shine. I wonder how this looks on other platforms. Switch. Number 1 is Mario Kart World, Pokemon Legends, Donkey Kong Bonanza, and Hollow Knight Silk Song. First through third place are Nintendo titles, and after that, Hades 2, Deltarune, Hello Kitty Island Adventure, Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. Oh, Tiny Bookshop made it to 9th place. Wonderful. 10th is Fantasy Life. Wonderful. It's an era where indies sell even on Nintendo platforms, especially Tiny Bookshop. The fact that this got in is amazing. I mean, running a bookstore does feel very suited for the Nintendo Switch. By the way, at number 17 is Ball Bit, which was like my third favorite pick last year. And the 18th is Kirby Air Ride. Looking globally, Nintendo titles are strong, but it means that indies that sell on Steam also sell on Switch. It probably depends on the gameplay, but broadly speaking, that seems to be the case. Now, PlayStation. For PlayStation, it goes EA Sports FC, Battlefield, NBA 2K, Forza Horizon, Monster Hunter Wilds, Ghost of Yotei, and Call of Duty. That's the order. This is, again, very interesting. PlayStation is a hardware platform that is extremely widespread in the West, so games that sell well there crash into the top spots. Among them, Monster Hunter Wilds makes an entry, and then there's Ghost of Yotei, one of the standout titles of last year. This is also a popular title, a huge hit. From a Japanese perspective, it makes me happy to see a game set in Japan selling overseas like this. It means the motifs, the setting, and the worldview are being accepted. This is something I really feel is a market change over the last 10 years. I just rattled through the summary and skipped Xbox. It's quite interesting. A few points of concern. Steam just has so many games coming out, but within that, indies that are made interesting and are properly accepted by the market are being thoroughly highlighted. This is because the platform is designed incredibly well, like properly featuring titles with growing wish lists. Because of that, they've built a mechanism to properly introduce items that users accept. So naturally, AAA titles get featured and go to the top of sales, but indies go up there too.
Ochify, the Game Business Podcast.
And whether it's Arc Raiders, Repo, or Battlefield 2, actually, the activity of Swedish companies stands out. Moreover, aside from Battlefield, they are doing things in a very new way, not just throwing tons of people at it, but being efficient where they can. I watched a podcast interview with Embark Studios, which made Arc Raiders, and they are thinking very deeply about how they build. Since there are likely other places in Sweden doing the same, I feel like the Swedish era will continue. Also, regarding the Switch, this isn't about good or bad. Nintendo titles are extremely strong. They make fun games, so it's natural. But if you ask how other titles are doing, I get the feeling that in terms of revenue, Nintendo titles make up a huge share of the market. But it also depends on the game's actual quality. I was curious about how that area would play out. On PlayStation, titles that used to be Xbox exclusives are entering the mix, making it even more westernized. Even within that, the unit count is about 1,347,000, but the revenue, I believe it's about 4 trillion yen annually in Japan, including hardware. They are doing that level of business. So in that sense, isn't PlayStation the one with the highest revenue per user, ARPU? Understanding that they are releasing those premium games. So are indies selling? Indies aren't in there, are they? In the top 20. I wonder whether Ark Raiders is indie is debatable, but if you ask whether titles from emerging studios are getting in there, we don't really see it. I realized this while looking at it. Wow, interesting. But high revenue per user means, for example, indies sell cheaper than those games that cost $50 or $60. So the purchasing power to play those games exists. So you could say there is room for development there. There are people willing to pay a lot of money for games after all. Well, I hope I can see the same data next year. I love looking at this kind of stuff. I'm curious how it will turn out.
Ochify, the Game Business Podcast.
Next, I want to do the segment where I predict the changes likely to occur in the game industry over the next 5 to 10 years. I feel changes through daily news, but doing this is also to apply it to my own business, and I want to verify the answers later, like asking, how good are my skills as an analyst? So I'm going to talk about this now. When thinking about this, there were things that stuck in my mind from what has happened over the last 2 or 3 years, and I started thinking from there. First, let's see. Regarding platforms, each has its merits, but I think Steam is extremely superior as a platform. In the end, so many games are released. Frankly, the market is in a state of oversupply. In that situation, getting discovered is incredibly important. How do you get found? Steam is a marketplace, and I think they put a massive amount of ingenuity into how to get found in a vast marketplace, featuring titles when wish lists grow, holding demo festivals and various other things, but it's all doable within the platform. So the activities are about creating that movement, the movement of growing wish lists. The most effective thing right now in my mind, and probably many marketers would agree, is organic streamers. Getting picked up by them, watching wish lists grow. It's easy to visualize that movement, so it's about activities for that. Essentially, you can just leave the promotion to streamers and the Steam platform. You can commit to that approach. I think it's brilliant that they've created a flow of online customers that is directly connected to the sales floor. So everyone finds Steam, well, easy to publish on, easy to publish. And the number of people playing games on PC is gradually increasing, and it's hardware that's easy to acquire. Next is the growth of Roblox. The way of playing is different now, isn't it? I don't really play it much myself, but just listening to people, it's like you enjoy what's inside it, but you can also make things yourself. So the side creating and the side playing are super seamless. You can play in various ways, and creating becomes part of the play. That's what I thought, and they call it Generation Alpha, right? Referring to people born after 2010 or so. That population will keep increasing, especially in Africa and South Asia. They will become the largest generation in 2040, or maybe they already are. As of last year, that generation naturally won't approach things with the same sensibilities as us. Their background is fundamentally different. I mean, I only started touching a smartphone after I became an adult, and some time had passed. They've had smartphones and PCs since birth, and the internet too, unlike us. Then there's Arab capital, buying EA or holding shares, minority stakes, but still, in Japanese companies like Nintendo, Capcom, or the Japan-listed Nexon. In that sense, they are doing what Tencent used to do, but in a different way and on a larger scale, so they will likely become a central presence in the future market. Finally, I'm thinking China and Turkey. As everyone knows, China is the largest market, and Chinese games that can win globally have started to appear, haven't they? Like Black Myth, Wukong. In that sense, their development level has always been high, but starting with mobile, they are now producing high-level content in the PC console world as well. Regarding Turkey, excellent mobile titles actually come from there quite often. Turkey has probably grown rapidly, really just in this last decade. Those are the 5 keywords: Steam, Roblox, Gen Alpha, Arab capital, China, and Turkey. These are the keywords that stuck in my memory as concerning or interesting. First off, within that, there are 2 perspectives. And finally, since I am a human operating mainly in the Japanese market, what will happen to the Japanese market? First, there are changes on both the customer and supply sides. I want to talk about what will happen in the Japanese market in response to those. I feel like I'm speaking in a confusing way, though. I thought about it a lot, like throwing out 7 topics or something, but coverage is low that way, even if it's easy to understand. I'm not at this very moment thinking of selling this idea or anything. I want to think through it together. So I want to speak in a raw way, or rather leaving some room for interpretation. So first, regarding changes on the customer side, I think there are 2 things to note. I touched on this with Roblox, but did I come up with this, or did it come up when I was consulting AI? I don't know, but create to play, that keyword, and the idea that the center of the market, the geographical center, will move. These are the 2 keywords I consider to be changes on the customer side.
Ochify the Game Business Podcast.
Regarding that first create to play part, Roblox is like that, Minecraft is too, and even Fortnite can be in some cases. Rather than playing within the rules of something that's already made, it's about making what you want to do or play inside it, whether it's Roblox or Minecraft. I think this is a pretty big change in how people play. For the side providing games, it's no longer just about making something and releasing it. Of course, there are times when you want to do that, But the reason something like Roblox wasn't possible before was likely technical constraints and market needs that were dragged down by those constraints. But I think those are going to be cleared away now. A friend of mine has a son in junior high who said that in Roblox he plays games others made, but he also makes them himself. And things like earning money from that are happening, right? I think it's an amazing era. When it comes to that, I'm quite an old guy now, so it's impossible to truly understand the hearts of the younger generation. But based on that premise, I think there will be a change in IP consumption. IP is something that is created first, isn't it? Whether it's Disney or Pokemon, it's like, here is this thing, it's created within a worldview and all that, but then people play using it. It's like, Komiket Doujinshi fan works, isn't it? I think we'll see that shift from being an adult hobby to being everyone's play. This is just one way of looking at it, so there's room for debate. But inside me, I think for those currently doing business with IP is an established thing you make, and then you sell the rights in that world. And in selling those rights, to protect the value, there are rules like you can't do this, you can't do that, but instead it's becoming, let's use this and play together. So I think there will be value in IP as a toy or tool for play. For example, to put it more simply with characters, if a 15-year-old kid makes something and everyone thinks, this is funny, and everyone plays with it, and money comes in from rights, that's IP too. There are probably limits on the scale of money earned or the expiration date, but what's happening is the same. It's like things that used to require money or facilities can now be done more and more easily. This is a huge change and an interesting one, and I called that create to play. So naturally, IP will be included in that part too, I think. Regarding the next point about the market center moving, this is simply a story of population and economics. Right now, it revolves mainly around the West and Asia. But going forward, India and Africa's populations are said to increase, and their economies will grow. I don't think this will happen in the immediate future, but over the next 10 years, India's presence in the global game market will surely rise. I don't know about Africa. When India and Africa become the center of the market, it's hard to predict which game business will be central, but Steam and smartphones, here Steam means PC and smartphones, I have a feeling these will remain central. Will smartphones evolve as they are? AI has arrived, so maybe hardware suited for the AI era will appear, and maybe the form of games will change to match that. I don't think dedicated game consoles will disappear, but making hardware itself is becoming commoditized even outside the game industry. Speaking of recent hardware, there's that next playground thing, the American one for kids without a controller, like a Wii without a remote. I've been paying attention to that. You can make various types of hardware in various environments now, so I wonder how that will go. Things like PlayStation or Nintendo Switch are very easy to understand as dedicated game machines, so that's wonderful in its own right, but I feel like they will become one of many among various options. This is just my personal feeling, though. One thing I feel while doing business targeting the global market is that Japan used to be the center of the game business. It's still one of the centers now, but its presence is definitely lower than before. Doing business in a market with that background and looking globally, my sense used to be looking at the world from Japan, but recently my sense is like looking at the whole earth from a satellite, looking at Japan, looking at America, and so on. Thinking that way, dedicated game consoles have a strong presence in the Japanese market, but if the global market is an ocean and you drop them in, how concentrated will that ink be in the water? I think that will change. The places where it's not concentrated will increase. In that context, I'm interested in how Sony and Nintendo will act. That concludes the changes on the customer side.
Ochify, the Game Business Podcast.
Regarding the supply side, as I said in the market review earlier, 19,000 titles are coming out on Steam. Frankly speaking, it's an oversupply. What I've felt over the last 3 years or so is that it's now a given that a released game is interesting. The question is, so what? On Steam, I think there's a possibility that unless you get into the top 1% of wish lists or sales, it doesn't work as a business. So out of 19,000 titles, that's 190. Yeah, I don't think this sense is that far off. What I want to say is, getting into that top 190 means making something ridiculously interesting. When asking how do we do that, money alone won't do it. Will a great idea do it? Not necessarily. I think this comes down to intelligence in both how you make it and how you sell it. Not everything will be a hit, but you analyze hypotheses. This might work. Using various data and your own senses, find something the team is convinced by, and once you find it, it's about how honestly and dogmatically you can execute it. I don't think it's just about having a great producer. And now AI is entering game development, making it even easier to use. What happens then? Something that used to take 100 people might only need 10. That means development costs will go down. And on top of that, I think a world is coming where the bar for making something interesting will rise. There are many sides to this, but in a world where platforms like Steam have mechanisms to feature excellent things that gather attention, this is a huge opportunity for small to medium businesses and individual developers. On the other hand, I think there will be a trend to avoid risk regarding development costs. In the world of major companies, we're talking about units of $100 million now. 100 million, 300 million, 500 million, $1 billion. Spending that kind of money to make something means, as a business, you have to recoup that amount and then make a profit on top. I think that's becoming harder to do, so they will tend to avoid gambling. You can make interesting things without many people. Just having capital doesn't mean it will sell. Investing money, capital, generating sales and making a profit is the obvious cycle, but the wisdom needed to do that is now required at a completely different level, so the business risk will rise. Places that manage to scrape by on a small, medium scale might not be able to anymore, while places with intelligence might be able to build businesses that produce results like the major players. It really is a battle of intelligence. And regarding money, the Middle East is spending a lot, and there are ways to procure it. But this story isn't really happening in Japan, more in the West, and it's cooling down recently. Early stage startup fundraising, like I quit a big company, I want to make a game, let's gather money. I think that's becoming difficult. Why? Because, as I said, while it's important whether the game is fun and who made it, saying Mr. So-and-so from a major company is making this is increasingly failing to provide reassurance against the risk of will it sell. If I were a VC, I'd say, just bring me something that works first. So you have to do that initial part yourself. But with AI, the hurdle might be lower than before. But if the hurdle is lower, it means more people can do it. Luck is obviously a factor, but it's that intelligence I mentioned. This is our team. This is what we're good at. We think this will work if we try this. Can you do that to a level where it meets market needs, which is still just imagination, and at least convinces the team? Man, it's a tough world. So you could say the difficulty level for success is rising. I'm talking a lot today, but it's an important episode, so I'll keep going. So amid these changes on the customer and supply sides, how will the Japanese industry be affected? The major premise is you just have to make something incredibly interesting, make something with a level of fun different from before. Since many people can do that, you have to use your intelligence and manage well, including doing things differently than before. In that context, I think about 3 things that will happen in the Japanese industry. 1. Among the so-called major Japanese companies, some will be unable to keep up with these global changes. 2. Regarding mobile, many places aren't keeping up, so I don't think many companies will do well from here on out. 3. Companies that do contract work, outsourcing, which are common in the Japanese game industry, companies that take on game production and development as a whole, I think this business model is going to get tough.
Ochify the Game Business Podcast!
Yeah, I have a lot of worries about the Japanese industry. Regarding the fate of the majors, as I said, the level of fun customers demand is changing right now, plus supply was already high. Using a popular series from the past because you have it is logically easy to understand. But will that definitely sell? Is that the only thing selling? It's not that kind of market. To keep creating what customers expect, you probably have to think differently than before. Throwing money at it won't fix it, and cutting staff won't fix it. It feels like we've reached a point where standard corporate management methods won't work. I think we'll see a split between those who can do that and those who can't. That's what I want to say. Second point, mobile is tough. Looking at the Japanese sales rankings, the number of new Japanese titles appearing near the top is countable on one hand. Or maybe there were 4 companies in the global top 20. Is 4 companies enough? I think companies specializing in mobile in Japan are in for a rough time. As for what they should do, I've seen various corporate decisions and events, but I can't easily find an answer. Finally, regarding contract work getting tough, this is simply because the clients are Japanese companies. If the two things I mentioned happen, basically the clients are struggling, then the companies taking the orders will struggle as well. It doesn't feel like something that just started happening recently. I hear about major publishers reducing or canceling development projects. At times like this, if you ask what those people should do, theoretically, they should make it themselves, act as their own publisher, and make the business work there. That would be best if they can do it. It got a bit dark at the end, but hey, I'm just analyzing and talking. I'm not God, I'm just predicting. It would be fine if the result is different. I've talked about a lot of things, but I want to track whether the changes I mentioned happen or not on this podcast going forward.
Ochify, the Game Business Podcast.
Okay, now for the gourmet information. I love Tonkatsu Pork Cutlet. I think you all like it too. An acquaintance told me about this place. The best Hire-katsu fillet cutlet in Japan right now in Shibuya. I'll introduce it. Tonkatsu Nagi. The location is between Shibuya Mark City and the Inokashira line. Well, around there. Shibuya is undergoing a lot of redevelopment, but there are parts that haven't been touched yet. It's like a mansion apartment block full of bars and eateries. On the 5th floor there, using a corner that's a bar at night, Tonkatsu Nagi operates. It has a retro Showa-era feel, and the situation is cool, but once you enter, it's a very lovely, comfortable space. The master there, Mr. Ishihara, used to be at a place called Katsukichi, near the Shibuya police station near the east exit of Shibuya station. Is it under renovation now? I've eaten the dinner course there. They just keep bringing out fried food. It's heaven for young people. Mr. Ishihara came from that shop, and he opened this new place, and it's only fillet katsu, no roast, loin, just fillet. There's a fillet katsu set meal, maybe a fillet katsu curry, and I think there was a katsu don too. I ate the set meal. The site says something like fillet katsu, soft enough to cut with chopsticks. It was exactly like that. The cooking, the heat control is exquisite, and the meat must be amazing too. There are various ways to eat it, but my favorite was salt and wasabi. It's the washoku, a fillet katsu I want to boast about to the world. The good thing here is that you can make a reservation. Since there are only 20 meals a day, you'd better book in advance. Yes, I plan to go again, and I'll definitely book Shibuya Tonkatsu Nagi. The shop posts on Instagram, and I guess people who found it post too, but quite a few overseas visitors are finding it and coming. It's a very hot spot. Please go. If it's not delicious, I will refund you. Definitely go. That's the gourmet story.
Ochify, the Game Business Podcast.
All right, ending. Please send your thoughts to X at Ochi or whatever contact method you know. Today I talked about topics that might split opinions or generate different views, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I don't think everything I say is correct, but as a market watcher, I intend to make fairly accurate points, so I'd love to have someone to discuss this topic with. Also, please let me know if there are any mistakes. Also, if there are topics you want me to cover, I'm waiting for requests. I'm thinking of recording the next one at the beginning of February. In late January, there is an event called the Taipei Game Show in Taipei, Taiwan, so I'm going there. I'll share what I saw and felt there, and whether the gourmet segment will be a new shop I found in Taiwan. We'll see. Until next time, stay insightful.